you strong enough to bear the burdens that sometimes come living this thing called life? Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. Am I wise enough to make the right decisions when I'm standing at the fork in the road? Am I have enough to do the things I need to do to take care of myself? Sometimes I wonder and ponder, only to realize I'm not alone, and there's nothing I have to do on my own, because I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. I am the place where God shows up. I am the place. You are the place. We are the place where God shows up. I am the place. Where God shows up. Now look at the person next to you and say, you are the place. You are the place where God lives, moves and breathes and has his being. You are the place where God shows up. The place where God shows up.
Fabulous. Yes, 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 yes. Woo-hoo. I am the place. You are the place. We are the place where God shows up. Isn't that amazingly powerful? Woo-hoo. Yes, and I love that verse that says, in God, I move and I breathe and I have my being. And that is why I am the place where God shows up, and you are as well. So welcome. Oh, I love the enthusiasm in the room. Welcome, everyone. It's so good to see you. And turn around and welcome our Facebook and YouTube family. Welcome. Woo-hoo. Nice to have you with us. So excited to be here with you today. I think of you throughout the entire week, and I see your faces one by one. I'm so delighted that you have joined us today. And to see some of you that have come back, I haven't seen you in a while. I'm excited to see you, all the newcomers that have been coming. So today we have a real special service. We are going to be welcoming later on in the service some new members that have just completed their Unity Basics class. So real excited about that. And some members that have renewed their commitment to our Unity teachings, our Unity principles. So before we open up in prayer, I just want to bring you a little bit up to date on some things that happen, because we're family and we should always kind of know what's going on within the family. So how many remember Adam? Remember Adam? Adam, yes. Well, Adam's wife transitioned this past week. And so we want to kind of love on him. When you leave, we're going to give you a slip of paper with his address, and maybe you can send him a card. Let him know that we're thinking about him, that we're loving on him. And so let's do that, okay? Well, when you leave, you'll have that. And then remember I told you that Barb Newkirk needed a procedure, and we were taking care in the hospital. Well, she's home. Thank you for the prayers. Yes. She's home. I spoke to her yesterday, and she wanted to say thank you for all your prayers. Thank you for the phone calls. And there's also a little slip with her address so that we can send her a card shower, letting her know we're thinking about her and loving on her and know that all is well.
How's Lee doing?
And Lee, I was just going to say that next. Lee is coming along very nicely. He's still in the hospital because it's a big procedure, but we want to keep praying for him, and he's moving along very nicely. So we will send him a card shower when he's home, okay? So all is well, all is good, all is as it should be. And gather together here with you this morning is such a joy. Yes, and we will talk about that later, but right now we're going to center ourselves for the service right now, this morning. Ground yourself, allow yourself to put your feet on the ground. And take in all the joy, all this good news. Visualize this amazing day that we have before us. And take a deep breath. And we let that go. And right now, right here, we set the intention to be very present, to release anything that we are thinking about after service or anything that we thought about before. Right now, we are entering into the sacred moment of the now. And we are allowing our minds and our hearts to be receptive, totally open to spirit within. We know that we are here by divine appointment. And so we grace this moment with our presence, our right now presence in the moment. God is where we are. This entire room is filled with love and light. Right where you are is holy ground. And so with this awareness, this understanding in our heart that we are one with God and one with each other, we send love to all those that are watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. We send love out into the world. And we send love to one another. We are grateful for this benevolent presence that is always with us. And grateful for the opportunity to come and be renewed and refreshed. And so with this great gratitude in our heart, we say, thank you, God. Thank you for the knowing that in you we move and breathe and have our being, and all is well. Amen. So before we say our affirmation, turn to your neighbor and just greet them, namaste. Namaste. The light in me beholds the light in you. And now in this sacred time together, let us say the affirmation of oneness. There is one power and one presence in the universe and in my life. God the good, all-powerful, all-knowing, everywhere present, right here, right now, God. Namaste.
Good morning. It's so wonderful to see everybody here and to feel your presence. So this is the time in our service for meditation. So I invite you now just to get comfortable. Sit comfortably in a way that allows you to be both alert and relaxed. Close your outside eyes and open your inside eyes to explore your precious inner presence. With each breath you take, consciously enter your sacred body temple, giving your body any energy that it might need today. Surrender your thinking and focus on your breathing again and again, inviting that precious moment of truth. In front of you is a beautiful banquet table. As you walk over to this banquet table, you realize that this is not food, but divine substance. That divine substance which is always available. An energy that provides oneness with spirit, enriching and feeding our inner life. As you walk over to the banquet table, you recognize February's power of the month, love. And is there any places in your life that need this power? As you reach for this substance of love, you experience love entering your consciousness and your body temple. You become curious as to all the substances on this beautiful banquet table. Every single one of our principles is divine substance. The oneness, our divinity, cleansing our thoughts, prayer, and plenty of renewal. Are there any places in your life that are calling for the substance of oneness, divinity, cleansing our thoughts, prayer, or renewal and love? So now in the silence, you listen. You listen to what divine substances are calling to you to feed on, to be divinely guided. You observe all the substances and you listen to what is written on your heart today. As you feed on this divine substance, you begin to experience a sense of joy and a heart filled with gratitude. all of this substance is your divine birthright. Your consciousness feels renewed and expansive. This delicious divine substance that allows for an experience of renewal and healing. This is abundant and eternal. Feast on this substance for renewal from the inside out. This is our divine fuel, feeding on grace and the power of love. Grace allows us to renew and to transform. So we celebrate and we dance with our inner spirit and feeding on this divine fuel. So gradually, return back to this beautiful sanctuary with a renewed sense of energy. Take another nice deep breath and experience the collective energy of everyone present. Namaste.
Thank you, Annie. As usual, beautiful meditation. Thank you. So, listening from the heart. What does that mean? That's today's message. You know, we've been moving through this book, this series that is based on the book See No Strangers. We've been moving through it so very quickly, and I know that this book has really opened my eyes to a couple of things. It's a book for a time where we're in transition. Right now, we're living in a world that there is so much transition going on, so much change is going on, so much is happening. And she offers us opportunities to look at these things that we need to look at so that we can be showing up in the world with more love, being that presence that we truly are. So last week we spoke about rage. Remember we spoke about that? And we talked about how we needed to create safe containers where we can release that rage and then be able to see, because the rage is only a secondary emotion. Right below that rage is the true wound, the pain that we're carrying. And we talked about how can we do that so that we can tenderly take care and tend to the wounds of our lives. And sometimes we cannot be out there and offer all the love that we want to offer when we ourselves are in pain. So that was last week's lesson, and sometimes that's not very easy to do because we're so used to being in the midst of doing, and sometimes we just need to step away and from all this hard labor of loving, because it's hard. It's not easy. It doesn't come easy, but sometimes it does. but truly, there are times when we need to step away, take care of whatever is we're needing to process, feel safe again, and then go back and re-engage in loving others and loving our opponents and loving ourselves. So today, I want to talk to you about listening to our opponents, and that can be hard labor. She uses a lot of metaphors of birthing because we're trying to birth the beloved community. And so this labor of listening to our opponents can sometimes be really hard. And first of all, sometimes we don't even understand what we mean by that. But her definition is really that an opponent is anyone whose actions and behaviors denies your dignity and your worth and your ability to pursue happiness, which is yours to have. So she talks about in this book, she says that, oftentimes we are guided by our dualistic mind, where we see only separation. We see the us and them. And most of the times, we don't really want to deal with the them because it's too challenging. We want to ignore it. We want to hide it. We want to pretend it doesn't exist. And then we have the Christ mind, this is the journey that we're trying to do, to elevate this dualistic mind so it could be under the submission of the Christ mind, which sees only oneness, which knows that that stranger that we're looking at is a part of us. We just do not yet know. So her teachings are pretty in line with what unity teaches about oneness, because unity teaches that our thoughts create the experiences of reality. And so oftentimes we have to go back into the reservoir of our mind and find out what is it that I'm truly holding that's keeping me from being that expression of love that I need to be. And oftentimes when it comes to our opponent is our preconceptions and our judgments and our biases and our prejudices, all those things that we need to look at. So every once in a while we have to step away, do our work, and then come back into the hard labor of loving another, loving our opponents, and loving ourselves. And so Carr says that there comes a point in our lives, and it's not working, so here it goes. There comes a point in the aftermath of cruelty or injury when I start to wonder about my opponent. Like, why did they do that? Or say that? Or believe that? Vote that way? What is at stake for them? What is driving their behavior? And I want to find out. Haven't you have felt like that? I want to find out, I want to understand why those choices were made. And we can do that when we are willing to engage in the hard labor of listening. It's not coming down. Sharon, may I give you this? Go ahead. We can do that when it's not happening for some reason. Here you go, thank you. We can do that when we are able to listen. It helps us to understand. When you are listening, and you are listening to understand, then the choices that you are making will help you to understand. Let me go back there. You can understand why they're making the choices that they are making, what is driving their behavior. So the goal of listening from the heart today, I offer to you, is not to change or persuade anyone. Is not to compromise or legitimize. It's none of those things. The purpose of heart listening is to be able to understand. To be able to understand. Because we know that in the truth we are one. And when we leave anyone out, that we're not expressing love. So sometimes what happens, and I don't know if that has happened to you, but it has happened to me. If I am willing to sit with someone long enough with the intention of listening to understand, then somehow there's a sacred space that gets created. And sometimes, if I can listen beneath the slogans and the sound bites and beneath all of that, if I could just stop and listen, then I can sometimes hear the story, the true story. And sometimes I can feel the pain that is developed from their wound. Sometimes that could happen. But we won't happen unless we set the intention to listen with the goal of trying to understand. And I grant you, there are times when we are not ready to listen to our opponents. Sometimes even our opponents can be family members, friends that we've loved for many years. And so she uses that word opponent. I like it because it's fluid. It's not enemy. It's not enemy. An enemy is too permanent. Opponent is fluid. You can still have a relationship with them even though, they may not think like you. You can still love them. You could still try to understand. And then when you do, you're able to know how to love them. And there are times when we can't engage in listening either because we carry our own pain. So we have to be ready to do that. Know when it is time for you to be able to listen to someone from the heart. Because it's a hard labor. It's not easy to do. We tend to want to justify and say our way is the better way. And there's no such thing. And there is a difference I want to kind of point out. Our opponents can think differently, and that's wonderful. That's what celebrates our diversity. That's what celebrates our diversity. We don't want to have to all think the same way. But when the opponent uses their actions and their behavior to deny your dignity and your worth, then you want to try to understand why. And here's what she says. She says that it's not even necessary for you to engage in listening to someone. You don't need to have empathy or compassion. That was really interesting. Because lots of times we want to kind of move into that space and say, I want to feel empathy and compassion, but we can't. And she says that no one should have to be asked to feel empathy or compassion for their oppressor. No. So you don't even have to start there. You start with wonder, with asking those questions within yourself. I wonder why. I wonder about him. I wonder because I want to bring them into I want everyone to be part of the circle of care. But usually what happens when we are ready to listen to our opponent's story, empathy and compassion do come in because we now understand a little bit more. Remember the time that I told you the story about I had a friend who was very biased against Mexicans, the whole race, everybody. Anybody who was a Mexican was terrible, it's horrible, and the words that would come out of this man's mouth were horrible. Until one day, he actually told the story about how his sister was raped by one of them. And because the action of one, he felt rage over all of them. And so I was able to understand where he was coming from. We were able to dialogue. We were able to I was able to see him differently. And I had empathy and compassion for what happened and was able to be more present with him to try to understand more. So when we are listening to someone, change is not the goal, But change can happen because of the encounter. Isn't that something? Someone can really change because you listened. What a gift it is to listen to someone. So Carr says, and I love this quote. This is not from Carr. This is from Toni Morrison. And she says, I refuse to let anyone belittle my soul or diminish my own expansive sense of self. The more I listen, the less I hate. The less I hate, the more I am free to choose actions that are controlled not by animosity, but by wisdom. Laboring to love my opponent is how I learn to love myself. Now think about that for a moment. I love that. We know who we are. We are a child of God, and so is everyone else. Worthy of dignity, worthy of all the good that we can offer, worthy to be loved. And when I'm not doing that, I am not really offering myself the love for me. Because my thoughts then will be creating the experience of my reality, whatever prejudices, whatever things I'm thinking about my opponent. It's causing me to feel separation. It's causing me to build barriers. And I am no longer feeling that good about myself. Sometimes we're conscious of that and sometimes we're not. So when she says laboring to love our opponents is how we love ourselves, it's really a truth. So for me, the question is not whether or not to listen to our opponents. For me, the question is how do we listen? When is it my time, my role to listen? When am I feeling emotionally and physically safe to listen? So those are questions I need to ask myself. Not everything is my role to listen to, but other times there is. So asking those questions. So the thing that I was thinking about as I was reading this, I was saying, wow, this kind of listening, this listening from the heart, is really an act of surrender. It truly is. Because when you are listening, you are risking you're risking being changed by what you hear. You are. If I can now understand I change. My perspective has changed. My beliefs have changed. So I am risking changing. Maybe what you have said has helped me to see it in a better light. So we risk being changed because listening from the heart is really an act of surrender. Opening yourself up to really say, I am willing to put away all my misconceptions and prejudices and biases and put it away and totally listen to understand. Sometimes we choose not to listen, even though we know we should. We don't want to try to understand because it feels uncomfortable. It does. It is easier to ignore the opponent. It is easier to hope that they would just go away. It's easier that they would change to our way. So it's so easier. But that is not what we're being called to do. We're being called to see each other, see the other as a part of me I yet do not know, and drive us to want to know so that we can understand, so we can break those barriers, so we can come back to the truth that we know, that we are one, that everyone is a child of God. And just because we think differently doesn't make us an opponent. So if you choose to listen for understanding, you must be able to leave all these things that I've been telling you. You have to leave them apart and move from your mind, move those away, and then move from your mind to your heart. The heart is the longest journey. That's the longest journey. From the mind to the heart is the longest journey from any organ in your body. So when you move there into your heart, and you begin to engage all your senses, see them, hear them, be in their presence. Engage all of that. Really listen to what is being said, even if it's not what you want to hear. Carr calls that kind of listening, she calls it a circle of listening. And this is how she describes it. When I listen deeply, it feels like a dance between two poles, between myself and another person, between what is at stake for them and what is at stake for me. And I draw close to them. And then I return, and I respond, and I draw close to listen again, moving in a circle animated by wonder. Isn't that beautiful? It's like a little dance. You take it for a little while, you listen, and you try again, and you retreat, and then you respond to what you've learned, and you keep coming back and doing this dance until you see no stranger. She emphasizes, however, that listening to someone is only part of the process. She says that witnessing suffering or even empathizing doesn't necessarily lead to any meaningful action. So we may think that we have accomplished something wonderful. I sat with Joe and we listened and we dialogued and I'm trying to understand. I'm getting it. So I'm feeling kind of good, yeah? We think that we have accomplished something because we were emotionally spent. But Carr says that we can have all the empathy in the world for anyone and still participate in the structures and the systems that opposes others. So it requires a little action from us, this heart listening for understanding. It requires a second part of it, an action. And so to complete the journey of listening, we have to ask ourselves, what does this demand of me? Now that I have listened to you, now that I'm getting some understanding, what does it demand of me? And what will I do differently now that I know this? What would I do differently? Really good questions to ask. Because that, like I said, listening for understanding will only become effective if we take some action. If there is something that changes in us, if we choose to do the action that will stop or minimize the oppression that we have felt. And you have to be willing to feel the discomfort and be right there in the hard truth. Be in the hard truth. Maybe what you're listening to will change you. The way that you were perceiving things. So when you engage in listening across these lines of differences, you're doing it not to find some agreement or compromise or to feel good. Again, you're just doing it because you want to understand. Understanding will lead us to make the right choices, take the right action. And it's not possible, I say, and true understanding is not possible unless we risk changing our worldview. So more than ever, we need each other. Oh my goodness, I need you, and hopefully you need me. We need each other to build this beloved community that we strive for, where no one is seen as a stranger, where we know each other. We know each other more than just a surface knowing, but we really know each other, and we can understand each other, and we can learn to love each other, and perhaps in knowing, being able to be changed and be able to reflect more of that Christ presence that we truly are. We need each other because we need to create these safe containers, these places that will help us harness the courage, because it takes courage to listen to your opponent. And the faith and the love. It takes all of the spiritual powers. Without this deep heart listening, sacred listening, we will never be able to build the beloved community. There will always be someone that we will exclude. So listening from the heart, not allowing this dualistic mind to take us again into the us and the them. She wrote, and sometimes it takes honest conversation. But to have honest conversation, for you to feel vulnerable enough to say, I'm going to tell you everything that's in my heart, everything I'm thinking. We have to be able to create the sacred space where they can feel okay, vulnerable to share the truth with us, with you, with me. Otherwise, it won't happen. So she writes that about a time when she had filmed. Remember, I told you a couple of weeks ago that she decided that she would go and to all these different Sikh communities and find out about violence that was occurring right after 9/11. And she created a film, and she was going from college to college to college, sharing that film about Sikh persecution in America after 9/11. And when she would address her audience, she would find ways to talk about the hate that was showing up without mentioning certain terms. She wouldn't mention white supremacy, she wouldn't mention racism, she wouldn't mention discrimination. She wouldn't mention those things because she felt it would make the audience feel uncomfortable. She wanted to believe that we only have to find common ground to heal our nation, and that individual connections could transcend systems of injustice, and that we could join hands and look into the future without having to reckon with the past. Isn't that the work that we do in our own personal journey? Go back to heal the wounds, go back to touch that place in us that was wounded, and allow ourselves the self-care Well, we need to do it collectively as a nation. So in hindsight, she says, I was hoping for reconciliation without any truth, without the labor of any kind of deep listening. In history, you know that. History demonstrates that there is no reconciliation without truth. Practicing hard, courageous, deep, genuine, hard listening is how we can confront the past and dare to imagine a different type of world where we will be in solidarity that is based on our real understanding of one another. The human tendency is to resist change. We don't want change until the resistance becomes so painful for us that we decide that it's okay, let me go into this unknown. I found this wonderful slide that I loved. It says that the truly creative changes and the big shifts that occur are right at the edge of chaos. Right at the edge of chaos. So it may seem chaotic right now, but it's just like an opportunity. This is an amazing, wonderful opportunity for us to come together as community and be able to see what wants to birth, what wants to grow. Stop the separation of things that are not necessary. We are allowed to think differently. We're allowed to have different perspectives. What we don't want is to be able to oppress others, deny them their dignity and their worth. We don't want that. So given the current reality is, how do we listen? How do we learn to listen to others whose beliefs are perhaps we find enraging or terrifying or whatever adjective we want to give it? How do we keep listening when the words are so sometimes offensive to us or dangerous to us that it only seems that the rightful response is to become a little bit hostile? So listening to understand the perspective and the pain of another person that we are inclined to disapprove of, to dislike them or hate them or dramatic change, is sometimes called a cognitive challenge. That's what the neuroscientists call a cognitive load. Yeah, cognitive load. Too much information, don't want it. And she says that the load only lightens with practice. So you can't you keep going back by little doses, a little bit, listen a little more, and try to understand. So the load only lightens with practice and with self-compassion and with the support of community, this beloved Unity of Citrus community, and with the grounding in our truth that includes the amazing healing power of love. Everyone wants to feel welcomed. Everyone wants to feel loved. It is our mission here, our vision, to create a loving, healing, accepting community. And sometimes we exclude. So maybe it's time to listen from the heart. And maybe it's time to create the safe container where others will feel safe to do that. Carr says that when listening gets hard, that what she does is she takes a deep breath. She's like, and she begins to pay attention to what's happening in her body. Our body gives us signals, Sometimes she may say, sometimes she feels hot. You ever had the heat is rising, Or you feel yourself clenched up and constricted. Then maybe in those times, one of the things that she says she does is that she asks herself, am I feeling safe in this conversation? Am I feeling safe? And if not, it's okay. Just come back, retreat, come back another time. She says if she stays and she slows her breath again, and she begins to once more pay attention to the thoughts that are in her mind and quieting her mind. And she begins to release the pressure that pushes her to defend her position, trying instead to wonder about the other person's story. So she quiets her mind, she breathes, she quiets her mind, she releases all that need to, let me defend let me tell you, you're wrong, let me tell you, what I believe, she resists that. And she decides to go back to wondering, to trying to understand, to listen to the person's story. So if you feel safe to listen, when you are listening, aim to stay curious. Just stay curious in the moment. Stay with that person long enough to be changed by what you hear. By what you hear. Maybe your opponent will begin to wondering about will return. And maybe he'll ask you or she'll ask you questions. And maybe from that shared space of love, you will be able to invite them in. So these are, because this love that we're talking about is not this love, I'm so in love with you, you're great, I love you, everything about you. No, it's not an emotional love. It's hard. It said that she describes it as a sweet labor. It's messy and complicated, but yet it is life-giving. Life-giving. So in these extraordinary times that we're living in, I want you to shift your focus from resistance to reimagining the world that we can have if we were to really listen to each other for understanding. And I kind of know that you come to church for me to give you a nice little boost. In the last couple of weeks, I've been loading, kind of, But we are living in really heavy times. We can't ignore that. And I believe that when we decide that we will face these times together, that we will do this together, that the load would lighten for us. Our unity principle, the fifth principle says that we put into practice the truth that we know, that we walk the walk. We already say walking our talk, I think it is. You see, I get them all wrong. But we walk the talk, and we live the truth, and we practice the principles. We practice being the light, the love, the peace that helps us to see no stranger. In the manifest world, listen, the manifest world, the world that we are seeing is reflecting back to us our consciousness. That's what it's doing. It's reflecting that back to us. It's revealing where we need to grow, and so that we will ultimately be the love that we are. Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan priest, said, "Pain that is not transformed is transferred." When we leave people alone with their pain, their alienation becomes the precondition for radicalization. But in listening to people's pain, we can help them transform it. So by virtue of whatever privilege we have, if we find ourselves safe enough to do this work of listening, brave enough to do this work of listening, then we play a vital role, each one of us. So this week, the homework. It's a little longer today, but here's the homework. So I'm inviting you this week to identify someone in your experience that you have seen as an opponent. Could be in your family, could be a friend, whatever. I invite you to prepare yourself to listen. See if you are ready to do that, if you're ready. You don't have to start with a challenging one, someone that's really hard to know. It could be someone that you're feeling a little safe. I can do this with this one person. And then imagine. It may be that you're just imagining it in your mind. Maybe you're not brave enough yet to actually go to that person. But imagine having that conversation in your mind with that person so that you're practicing, you're wondering, you're preparing your heart and your mind for when the time comes to really listen, you will be ready. And some of you can maybe do this by picking up a phone. Hey, John, I haven't talked to you in a long time. You come to church and I really don't know you. I want to know a little bit about you. Where did you come from, And in doing those kinds of things, we get to know each other. We don't see each other as strangers anymore. And then when you actually do engage in that conversation, make sure you prepare your body and your heart and your mind to be able to listen. So I'm going to skip all this down here. So your homework is that. Find someone that you are ready to listen for understanding, to know them a little deeper. Because when you know them a little deeper, you'll be able to know how to love them. Step away if you don't feel safe. If you start that conversation and you don't feel safe, then you say, okay, we'll continue this another time, and that's okay. I love you. I bless you. The practice of listening for understanding will cultivate in you, if we do it often, a new way of seeing, from a higher perspective, and a new way of being. I had to tell you, I am eternally grateful to each and every one of you. Each and every one of you. You teach me so much. You show me so much. You've allowed me to open my heart to see from a different perspective. You've shared your stories with me. I hold you tenderly in my heart. And so I am grateful for you, because when we can do this for one another, when we start doing that, guess what? We are becoming the beloved community. And that's what we want to do here at Unity of Citrus. And if we could do it here, then we could do it everywhere. Thank you for listening. Namaste. And so how appropriate that I get to now introduce to you our new members. And I'm going to move out of the way because you're going to be able to see their pictures. But new members that are willing to embrace the vision of this community, to love one another, to accept one another, to create a safe, healing place, and to put into practice the principles that we teach, and to be able to help us to create the beloved community through listening to each other. So I'm going to invite Annie to come up. Izzy, would you pass me those little goodie bags? And as we call you up, Annie, I'm going to give you the certificates, and you could do that part. Annie just completed Unity Basics. I love when she does that. Yay, Annie, thank you, thank you, thank you.
But it was my first Zoom experience.
Yes.
We're the Zoomers.
Yeah, we decided we're going to be the Zoomers because we've been Zooming a lot. So Annie's going to call them up so that you can get to meet them. Just make some space when you do come up so that we can honor, our safe distancing. And I will hug you virtually, okay? I'll give you a little nudge. All right, Annie, whenever you're ready.
Actually, I want everybody to turn around and say, hello, Peggy Wilford.
Oh, yes, Peggy was in the class. Hi, Peggy.
I do believe Peggy has attended every one of my Unity Basics for the last 10 years. So she is renewed. Then I would like to invite Donna Cole up.
Oh, Donna.
And then if we'll turn around and say hello to Rhonda Baker.
Rhonda. Woo.
And then we have another renewal, and that's Pat Maynard.
Oh, Pat. Oh, yay. Woo-hoo to Pat.
And then we have Donna Doe.
Beautiful, Pat.
And then we have our beloved Leanne.
Leanne. And so now we just want to bless them. Rub your hands nice and together, and let's give them our nice unity blessing. We love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. And we see you doing great things. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, truly. How lovely. Our family keeps growing and growing.
my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present, it's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one loving family, sharing one son. I choose love. Peace for our planet is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose love. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one choice unites us. Let this be the one. I choose love. I choose love. I choose
I think everybody has the assignment. I guess I don't have to repeat it this Sunday. The two might go together, though. Okay, it's that time in our service now for our tithes and our offertory. We're grateful for everyone being here, so if you would, put your tithes and offering in your hands, and together with me, say our offertory blessing. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I send forth this gift with my blessings and my love. And right now we just visualize the abundance and the prosperity. And we know that is doing all the great works in this world, in this community, and amongst each other. Thank you, sweet Spirit. Amen. So I thank everyone for being here with us, and it's so nice to see some new old faces. I don't know how to say that. I always have to be careful. So I hope that you've been uplifted and that we have this opportunity of doing a lot of listening. So now, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen. So before you leave, allow Reverend Luz to come up for a little closing.
I get a lot of exercise on Sunday. So no, I just wanted to remind you that we are opening up some classes, and we're opening up slowly. Be patient with us. You know, we're just kind of being mindful of what's going on, and your love and your prayers and your support is always so greatly seen. I'm going to meet you outside, but before we go, let's sing the peace song. I think we just, if you want to stand, you can do that, and then once I leave, the ushers will escort you out. So, let there, you got it, Sharon?
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present, it's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose